Hey everyone, great to be with you and hope you guys are enjoying jumping into this community season. For those of you guys who are new, glad you jumped in. Just want to say a special thanks to your leaders who do such a great job leading and preparing and praying. And so thank you for leading so well. It's a blessing to the church. And today we start in First Timothy, an amazing book. Paul's writing to Timothy to go into that church and clean up some of the mess that's happened. Paul prophesied in Acts 20 that false teachers would rise up in the church in Ephesus, and sure enough, here we are. And so he sends Timothy in there to help correct and reorient that church back in line with the truth of the gospel. And this week he starts with a really strong command to charge the false teachers to stop teaching false truths. And we saw the importance of doctrine in three ways it kind of turns up. Good doctrine shows up in the fruit of our lives. Sometimes people say things like, well, why do we need to worry about doctrine? What they don't realize is your doctrine will become your life. And so good doctrine is going to show up in fruit. Paul specifically mentions love, purity, and a sincere heart. And it's just amazing to think how good doctrine in our lives will produce those things: love of God and love of neighbor, purity and sincerity. And just, it's amazing how often false doctrine tends to attack those things, tends to lead people to self-love or justify a lack of purity or walk in hypocrisy. And Paul knows, hey, our doctrine becomes our life. He also deals with the temptation I think all of us at some point will wrestle with, to compromise on good doctrine and good theology, to make excuses, to explain away some of God's standard of holiness. And he walks through a list where we see that. And just in case we start to feel self-righteous, as we read the list, he's like, and all such sins. He gets it like, hey, no one's escaping. We all need repentance. We all need to ask the question, where are we tempted to compromise on the truth of God's standard? And then lastly, he deals with good doctrine, sees the gospel as glorious. And when was a time in our own lives where the gospel was just sweet and it was glorious, where we delighted to hear it? It was alive and it was giving just joy to us when we heard it proclaimed. The reality of Christ's work was very real to us. And maybe just to talk about that today, when was a season in your life where the gospel is glorious? And then was there ever a season in life where you found a false teacher? And false teachers are difficult because usually 90% of what false teachers say is true. The hard part is the 10% that leads people astray. And you were tempted to maybe justify them as a teacher because they were winsome, or they were funny, or they had a lot of knowledge, or they connected with people at your age at that point. And you were tempted to keep listening to and justify a false teacher. Did you ever enter a season like that? What helped you come out of that? And then when was a time in your life where the gospel was really glorious? And so hope you guys have a great discussion and look forward to hearing how it goes.